The retirement lasted approximately as long as it needed to, which is to say, not long at all. When the hot conflicts that had given the League of Legends its reason to exist cooled into the managed competition of sanctioned combat, Corki found himself in possession of something he had not anticipated: free time. He tried aerial acrobatics, he tried canyon runs. He tried the specific combination of speed and altitude and narrow margins that had always been the closest approximation in peacetime of what combat flying felt like. It was not enough. The smell of gunpowder in the open air at altitude, the specific quality of attention that only activated when the margin between alive and not was measured in fractions. These were not things he could simulate. He knew this. He also knew that when Heimerdinger joined the League to test his inventions against the world's best, there was only one reasonable response. His name is Corki. He has never found a reason to be on the ground when he could be in the air. New here? Subscribe. Every week, a League of Legends story told the way it deserves to be heard. The Yordles of Bandle City are not a single kind of thing. This is the first thing to understand about them, and it is the thing that the easy characterization, small, enthusiastic, somewhat eccentric, consistently fails to capture. They are as varied in their individual orientations as any other people, and the specific direction that variation takes in any individual Yordle tends to be extreme. What they bring to wherever they end up is the particular quality of beings who commit completely. When a cohort of Yordles relocated to Piltover and encountered hextech, the specific combination of magical energy and mechanical engineering that Piltover had been developing into a transformative technology, the encounter produced what complete commitment to something genuinely worth committing to always produces: rapid, significant, disruptive progress. Yordles who brought their full attention to a field that was already moving fast made it move faster. Corki's attention landed on flight, not the theoretical aspects of flight, the aerodynamics, the engineering challenges, the mathematical description of what happened when a craft moved through air at particular speeds and angles. All of that was interesting, and he understood it. What he was interested in was the experience, the specific, irreplaceable experience of being in a machine that was faster than he had any right to expect and closer to the ground than was strictly advisable, and moving in directions that required him to be fully present to everything happening around him simultaneously. He built a ship, or rather, he worked on a ship that already existed in some form and became, through the specific process of a person who has found the thing they are most interested in applying, everything they know to it, something considerably different from what it started as. The craft, the Bandle City Scouts designated XDSR, eventually became the aircraft that other people knew him by. Heavily modified, equipped with things that other pilots sometimes characterized as excessive, optimized for a combination of performance and firepower that made it one of the most recognizable craft in whatever airspace it entered. He named it Reconnaissance Operations Frontline Copter. He called it the Rafflecopter. The name was exactly what he wanted it to be. Here is what Corki brought to the Screaming Yipsnakes that most pilots did not have. He was better than you when things were bad. The Screaming Yipsnakes were among Piltover and Bandle City's most effective aerial reconnaissance units, which meant they flew missions that required going where reliable intelligence required going, regardless of who was in the airspace between the departure point and the destination. They were good. The missions they flew demanded good. Corki was the one who volunteered for the ones the others did not because he had a death wish. That is a misreading that comfortable people apply to people who are comfortable in situations the comfortable people find unbearable. He was not indifferent to survival. He was genuinely excellent at surviving, which is a different quality from indifference. He had an understanding of the relationship between his craft and the air and the forces trying to remove him from both of them that operated at a level his conscious mind was not involved in. When things went bad, the specific emergency of it activated something that most people experienced as panic and Corki experienced as clarity. He flew behind enemy lines for intelligence gathering. He flew communication runs into active combat zones through airspace that required constant adjustment to avoid the things coming up at him. He flew missions that required him to make decisions faster than the decision-making process could keep up with, and trust that the body knew what the mind had not yet concluded. He came back from all of them. Not intact always. The craft absorbed considerable damage across his career, and the modifications he continued to make between missions were partly aesthetic and partly structural. The aesthetic ones often coincided with structural improvements that were best not examined too closely by anyone who had regulatory concerns about what was legal to attach to an aircraft. He had a philosophy about modifications. If it was useful, it went on. If it was useful and looked impressive, it went on in a prominent location. Between missions, he talked about the flights, the way musicians talk about performances. Not to brag, but to process the specific decisions made in specific moments, what the craft had done, and what he had done, and where those two things had been the same, and where they had diverged. He was not someone who found the retrospective analysis of danger to be morbid. He found it productive. Understanding what had worked and why it had worked and what might work better next time was not separate from flying. It was part of the same practice. This was why the Screaming Yipsnakes record showed across the years of his active service something unusual, not just excellent outcomes on difficult missions, but a gradual improvement in the mission design itself. The routes got better, the timing got sharper, the decisions made under pressure became less costly. He was not only flying missions, he was learning from them in the specific way of someone whose relationship with failure was purely informational. The craft that emerged from years of active service and ongoing modification was, by any honest assessment, a statement. Multiple missile systems, Gatling guns positioned for maximum forward coverage, a phosphorus bomb delivery system that produced the specific combination of illumination and area denial that night operations sometimes required. The specific arrangement of these systems on the craft was, some people argued, more theatrical than practical, as if the point was not simply to be capable of doing damage, but to look like the point was doing damage while also being quite capable of doing damage. Corki did not find this criticism meaningful. He flew with the Screaming Yipsnakes for long enough that his name and the units became effectively interchangeable in the accounts that circulated about particular operations. The missions he flew became, in the retelling, the kind of thing that gets attached to a reputation, which meant that the reputation preceded him in ways that were sometimes useful and sometimes simply accurate. He was the best dogfighter in the unit. He was probably the best dogfighter in any unit that was operating in the same airspace. He knew this. He did not make it a point to say it, because saying things that are visibly true is redundant. Then the League happened, and the shooting stopped. The formalization of conflict resolution through the League of Legends was, from a political perspective, a significant achievement. It channeled what would otherwise have been ongoing active warfare into a structured competitive format, removed the daily arithmetic of casualties from the equation, and gave everyone involved a way to continue expressing their respective positions without the particular costs that expressing those positions had previously required. From Corki's perspective, it removed the part of his life that made the rest of it functional. He understood this about himself. He was not confused about why the canyon runs did not satisfy him, or why the acrobatics demonstrations, while technically excellent, felt like a demonstration of something rather than the thing itself. He was not looking for danger for its own sake. He was looking for the specific combination of skill and stakes and speed that only existed when the margin was real. And the League, for all its combat intensity, was not the same thing as the missions that had given him the best years of his career. He retired. He found the retirement insufficient. He identified the one available option: join Heimerdinger in the League and apply to sanctioned combat the same orientation he had applied to the unsanctioned kind. It was not the same, he knew that going in. It was the closest available thing. He lives at altitude. He is most himself when the airspeed indicator is in the range that most pilots avoid. He has never identified a modification to the Roflcopter that would not improve it. He is currently working on one. Whatever the League's fights lack in the specific quality of consequence that the old missions had, they have the one thing that cannot be simulated and cannot be replaced. They require him to be fully there, fully present, fully alive in the particular way that only happens when everything is moving too fast for anything except the thing itself. He is always there. If this story reached you, subscribe. Every week, the full lore of a League of Legends champion, told the way it deserves to be heard.